Welcome to Political Capital, the intersection of money and politics. According to Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Dr. Mkhize, South Africa's municipalities, 87% of them actually, are in a state of distress or dysfunctional. Joining me today is the person who is responsible for local government oversight, the chairperson of SALGA, Mr. Pakstow. Mr. Tau, I thank you for your time.
When you very much,
hear a statistic like that, how does it make you feel, and what is SALGA? What can SALGA actually, as the enforcer and also as the oversight, what can SALGA do to make sure that we have a different kind of trajectory and that these numbers go down?
Well, firstly, to confirm that as the Association of Local Government, we are concerned about the state of our local authorities, particularly those that are in distress. Some of them as a result of the reality that they do not have the revenue base to be sustainable as municipalities, and it's a matter that we've raised with government. So there are municipalities that do not have a rates base, they do not reticulate electricity, so the extent to which they're able to generate own revenue is quite limited. They are therefore dependent on national transfers, and the issues that we've raised with government is that these transfers are not adequate to enable these local authorities to undertake their responsibilities.
What is the problem at these municipalities, for instance, that you're talking about? Is it a matter of talent or not getting the right people in place to make sure that municipalities are self-sustaining? Well,
it's a whole range of issues. The first, of course, is that it's a design issue, as I indicated. Because South Africa has decided on wall-to-wall municipalities, so there's no part of the country that does not have a local authority. In deep rural areas, you simply do not have the tax base to be able to generate the revenue. So that is a major limitation. Some of them are impacted by economic cycles. We have municipalities like Mfuleni that has been impacted by the reality of the economic factors in relation to the steel industry, ISCO and related industries, and that has impacted significantly on an economy like areas such as Vanderbijl Park and Vereeniging. You have a municipality like Emalahleni, which is Witbank, where the downslide of the commodities in the past few years, in particular coal, has impacted negatively on that municipality in relation to the closure of a number of mines and therefore a reduction in economic activity. But indeed, there are instances where we are concerned, and the report published by Dr. Mkhize indicates that we should be concerned about leadership in certain instances and management. So it's both political and administrative leadership in the institutions. We are working with government to build capacity of the people that we already have there. We have established an academy as SALGA so that we're able to prop up the capability and capacity of our leadership in the municipalities. We have support programs such as the Municipal Audit Support Program that is looking directly at ensuring that we improve the audit outcomes of our municipalities. And we have programs such as Small Town Regeneration programs, the Greater Karoo Development Initiative, which are intended to help municipalities to grow their economies at a local level and facilitate local economic development. So we play varied types of roles in partnership with government to support our local authorities.
I really like the way and the passion at which you explain some of the problems in this sector. And it brings to light your years of experience that you've had in local government. And maybe that's why you're the perfect person to be leading this thing. But my question would be in this regard. You said something about the fact that this is both administrative and political. Politically, people don't want to know about the problem. They want to feel that they are receiving the fruits of their labor, the fruits of their taxes, and that their service delivery being delivered. Administratively, it has to be done, but politically it has much more of a cost, yes?
Yes, indeed. I mean, if you think about it, our constitutional and legislative environment defines a municipality as composed of three components. The first is the administration, the people that do the daily work in the municipalities, whether these are the engineers or people that sweep and clean our streets, or people that man our libraries and so on. And then you have council, which is the elected political representatives based on both a constituency and proportional representation system. But the third and very critical component of what constitutes our municipalities is actually the people. And they are an integral part of the municipality, not just as passive recipients of municipal services, but as active participants in defining leadership, in holding those elected accountable, in participating in, amongst others, ward committees and other instruments that have been created for community participation and local democracy in our communities. And I think that it is important that we mobilize all three legs of what is a municipality in our country to ensure that the system functions better in the interest of the people that we all serve.
The system and its function has been much issue of contention. There's been this notion until it was passed recently by Parliament, the Public Amendment Bill, giving the Auditor General more powers to be able to hold those who are responsible for wasteful expenditure, fruitless expenditure, to account for that and maybe take some punitive measures. Do you feel SALGA is empowered enough to also be able to do that? Because the Auditor General can only do it at the back end. He's only retrogressively looking at the problem, while SALGA is empowered to actively look at the problem and try and engage, the local municipality.
It is a discussion that we're currently having in the association. We are an association of our members, so we represent our members and their interests. And we've been having the debate, to what extent do we introduce measures that enable us to take corrective action against our members, because we are dependent on them for our existence as an association. Our mandate is to the extent that we represent their interests in Parliament and in government. Our mandate is to the extent that we are the employer body that negotiates on their behalf in negotiations with Labour. And our mandate is to the extent that we provide support to our municipalities. So we have introduced the debate to the extent that as an association we can hold our members to account, but it's something that we have to present directly to our members. So that they are able to authorize the association to take corrective action against members that consistently act in a manner that undermines the association in the first instance, but indeed undermines the overall systems of government in the country.
Minister Nene, the now back again, Minister of Finance, spoke about using municipalities as growth nodes to edge up our economic activity, if you will, to bolster that. If municipalities can't even have a problem with managing their own finances, and some municipalities going even as far as overextending their finances to one bank that has been put under administration now, should the Minister of Finance really be hoping that municipalities could be a source of growth to drive economic growth within different regions of our country?
Well, firstly, in discussions with Minister Nene, we've decided that we need to start with those municipalities that have capacity. If you think about it, the vast majority of South Africans are serviced by municipalities that are functional. Because in reality, the vast majority of our people live either in metropolitan municipalities or large cities, and to a large extent, these are relatively well administered. But we've said to the minister, these are the municipalities that are active in the debt capital market. These are the municipalities that are able to raise bonds. These are the municipalities that attract talent and people into their jurisdictions, and therefore these are the municipalities where we should start by facilitating their active involvement in economic growth and development. In his first stint as the Minister of Finance, we had an agreement with Minister Nene that we should work on ensuring that municipalities are also able to utilize national grants to leverage the debt capital market. We are encouraged by the fact that that has been agreed to, and recently, in fact, in this year's budget speech, it was announced that the metros in particular, but also the large municipalities, would be able to utilize the grant funding. So that creates greater scope for municipalities to invest in their infrastructure, because our infrastructure backlogs are significant and continue to grow if you take into account, in the first instance, the backlog, but secondly, the reality of increased urbanization and the fast pace of of urbanization in our cities, this backlog is growing. So we need to enable our local authorities to invest in infrastructure so that they are able to spur on economic growth and development.
And that's the thing. The inward migration is painting that type of a picture that, you know, will have higher concentration of citizens within urban areas. But when you have to worry about such things like paying state utility Eskom, for instance, which municipal debt accounts for most of Eskom's debt, and the fact that Eskom still has to go back to the table to say, guys, can you play along? Can you play ball? So far so that the issue has to be addressed in national parliament, says to me that there is no real communication, that, you know, the ground is not shifting. Is there a lack of willingness on municipalities level to play ball and to help this entity, which also is incurred a lot of debt as a result of everybody else's debt and some?
It certainly is not a lack of willingness on behalf of our municipalities and by SALGA. In fact, we've been in discussions with Eskom directly about the systemic and structural issues with regards to the debt owed by municipalities, including, for example, that Eskom levies interest at prime +5 after 15 days, when the Municipal Systems Act provides that municipalities should collect after 30 days. If you're not a particularly liquid municipality, it means that you incur interest immediately after 15 days, when in fact you're collecting after 30 days. It's a structural issue that requires resolution. The fact that the interest compounds the problem, if I may use the word, because in reality you penalizing the municipalities, and when we're talking about what the Eskom debt is, actually the bulk of that is interest. So we're having a discussion about how do we deal with the structural and systemic issues. There are also issues about allocation of functions and roles to municipalities by the National Electricity Regulator. There are also issues where the regulator has approved lower tariffs for municipalities than actually they are buying electricity from Eskom. And that's part of the problem that we face. So when we're talking about the structural and systemic issues that we've engaged Eskom on, these are the issues that led to the President appointing an interministerial task team chaired by Minister Zweli Mkhize that also includes Minister Pravin Gordhan, Minister of Public Enterprises, and also the Minister of Energy, Minister Gadebe, and other ministers, and of course ourselves as SALGA, which interministerial task team reports to the President on the progress we're making to address the systemic and structural issues, so that we're able to isolate those that are defaulting as a result of being irresponsible, if I may use the word. But in many instances, we have identified that some of the issues are structural and systemic, and that we require a more considered view of how we resolve the problem.
When President Cyril Ramaphosa took over office on the 15th of February, he spoke about a spirit of a new dawn, something that gave us all hope that this will not be the South Africa we used to know. It will be a different kind of South Africa. Not only do we hope for better economic fortunes, but we hope for consequence management. And what we are talking about essentially is billions that go to waste, that we want to know that there will not be such a repeat, that our fruitless and wasteful expenditure bill is not going to go further than what it is now, and that we plan on taking that down. Is that something that you can work with municipalities that are part of your association in getting an agreement over? Because I think I speak for all South Africans when I say we're really over billions and billions of rands worth of wasteful and fruitless expenditure.
We are working with our municipalities, and indeed working with the Auditor General, but also working with the Accountant General to the extent that there are matters that relate to reporting and accounting standards that require resolution. In certain instances, we worried about the narrative that unwittingly is created that suggests that the problem is increasing, when in certain instances the fruitless and wasteful expenditure is added on to previous years. So we're saying, let's isolate what happened in previous years from what happened in the year under review, so that we hold people for the year under review. In that way, we're able to measure progress. We're able to measure whether, in fact, we're moving backwards or forward. And it's a matter that we've raised strongly with government and with the Auditor General, to the extent that we need to ensure that we hold people to account for what is real. Because if you say, well, what happened 3 years ago is added to what happened this year, and the problem is worse.
That's compounded, yeah.
You actually
you want
you're
start
not going
solving
to solve
it,
the problem. So let's isolate the problem for what it is, resolve it for what it is, and hold those that we've elected and or appointed in the municipalities accountable for their actions and activities.
That's the chairperson of the South African Local Government Association in that hat. When we come back from break, he'll be wearing a different hat. He'll be an ANC member.